there is a case that's, I believe, making its way through the Supreme Court that could address some of these issues with churches, and quite frankly, it could not come soon enough. The Biden administration is nominating and putting in place individuals in key spots, particularly in the Department of Justice, in the Civil Rights Division, that has actually been advocating for churches under the Trump administration. And in this case, they've made statements in the past that make it quite clear they would be targeting churches. Joining me now with more on this is FRC's Research Fellow for Legal and Policy Studies. We have Katherine Beck Johnson. Katherine, welcome back to the program.
Thanks so much for having me, Tony. Happy to be here.
All right, let's start first. I want to get into the DOJ Civil Rights Division and why this is bad news for religious liberty. But first, some possible good news. Are we anticipating something coming from the Supreme Court as it pertains to churches and their ability to meet?
We are definitely on the lookout for the Supreme Court to issue a ruling in a Harvest Rock Church case coming out of California. They sued, and they actually, the Ninth Circuit did strike down a person limit in the churches and said that they had to go to a percentage cap. So that certainly is a win for us. However, there still is a percentage cap, and there is also a ban on singing that the Ninth Circuit did uphold. So we're waiting to see what the Supreme Court will issue in this case.
Well, I actually spoke at Harvest Church a few months back, and I tell you what, the singing was strong, and folks were doing quite well and excited to be together. And I think, you know, those churches that are exercising this right, hopefully with this court, the new Supreme Court, that they will get some relief from the court, and that will send a message to some of these government officials, including a nominee for the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. Tell our listeners about this nomination.
So President Biden has nominated Kristen Clarke to lead the Civil Rights Division, and this is extremely troubling for conservative Christians. When Attorney General Jeff Sessions launched his very successful Religious Liberty Task Force, she took to Twitter saying that this is shameful and that it's just making it easier for people to use religion to mask their discriminatory goals. So it really is quite dangerous that she's perpetrating the lie that religious adherents are just bigoted, hateful people out here to target other people. And it shows a lack of understanding that we are people of faith who have love and compassion, and we're simply taking a stand for the truth.
Well, I think people need to also understand the sea change that this presents for the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. Now, we had members of the Department of Justice on radio quite frequently where they were actually going out across the country and filing letters of interest. They were advocating on behalf of churches that were being unduly restricted in their ability to meet. And so now we're that's behind us from the Trump administration. Now we have an administration where that same department is going to be headed up by someone who has expressed outright hostility toward churches. That's a big change.
That's exactly right. Previously, as you said, President Trump's Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, they filed statements of interest in churches in Colorado and D.C. and Virginia. They were very courageous and very aggressive in defending the churches during the government overreach for coronavirus. But not only that, when I say courageous, I really mean courageous. They stood with Jack Phillips and Masterpiece Cake Shop. They filed an amicus brief supporting him. So they didn't shy away from some of the most controversial of cases. They really stood by the First Amendment, stood by the religious adherents who were being targeted by the cancel culture, by the left, and they were proud to do so. And so when you say this is a huge shift, it really is. This wasn't an administration that was lukewarm on the issues. It's not as though, they weren't hostile, but they weren't really a friend. They really were strong, courageous leaders on this. So this is a huge shift.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Katherine, because I think, some people lump everything under the president. And the president gave the green light to the protection of religious freedom. I had those conversations with him. No doubt he was the final decision maker. But what really made the Trump administration successful, especially on what I would say the religious liberty issue and the sanctity of human life issue, is that he had people in those positions who were committed and passionate about these issues, and they worked hard. As you said, they were fearless in advancing the sanctity of life and the protection of our first freedom. It was remarkable.
It really was. It was something really exciting to see as those of us that work on these issues, to know that we had the government behind us. It's incredibly powerful before the Supreme Court to have the Department of Justice, the Solicitor General's office say, we are on your side and we argue before the court on behalf of the United States government. That's really persuasive for the Supreme Court. That shows that this isn't just political. This is really the stance of the United States government. And so it really was very powerful for our issues and for protections in an increasingly hostile environment.
Yeah, absolutely was. Katherine Beck Johnson, thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you on the program.